My husband didn't even try to cover himself when I caught him in bed with my son's fiancée. Tell me something. What would you do in that moment? Scream? Run? Pretend you didn't see it? Because I didn't do any of those things. I froze. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. At 67 years old, I thought I had seen every kind of betrayal a life could offer. I'm Isolde Kavanagh, and I built my life on endurance, on surviving disappointment quietly, on keeping a family together even when it frayed at the edges. My first marriage ended in silence. My second, Ronan, was supposed to be different. Stable, predictable, safe. And my son, Lucian, he was the one thing I believed I had done right. 34, thoughtful, careful, the kind of man who didn't make reckless decisions. Which is why his fiancée, Marceline Veer, felt like such a perfect match. Too perfect, maybe. The night before their wedding, the house should have been full of peace. Everything was ready. The flowers arranged, the guests settled into nearby hotels, the schedule finalized down to the minute. It was supposed to be the calm before a beautiful beginning. But I couldn't sleep. Have you ever had that feeling? Like something is slightly off? Not loud, not obvious, just enough to keep your eyes open in the dark. That's what pulled me out of bed. At first, it was nothing, just a faint light spilling from the guest wing. Then, voices. Low, muffled, intimate. I remember thinking, Marceline must be nervous. Brides often are. So I walked down the hallway, slowly, quietly, not wanting to startle her. The door was already slightly open, and when I pushed it, everything changed. There they were, Ronan and Marceline, in bed. But here's the part that didn't make sense, the part that still echoes in my mind. She didn't scream. He didn't move. No panic, no scrambling, no guilt, just stillness. Marceline pulled the sheet up, not in shame, but almost like she was managing the situation, containing it. And Ronan? He just looked at me, calm, almost annoyed, and then he said it. You weren't supposed to see this. Before I could even process those words, I heard another voice behind me, my son. Mum, don't. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't an accident. It was something else entirely. Why wasn't anyone panicking? That was the first thought that cut through the shock. Not anger, not even heartbreak, just confusion, sharp and immediate. Because this wasn't how guilt looked. I turned slowly, my hand still gripping the edge of the door, and there was Lucian standing behind me. My son, fully dressed, completely composed. His face wasn't twisted in rage or betrayal. It was tight, controlled, like he had been expecting this moment, just not now. Mum, he said again, quieter this time. Please. Please what? Please don't react? Please don't ask questions? Please don't ruin whatever this is. My chest tightened. Explain this, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Behind me, I could sense movement, fabric shifting, the bed creaking softly, but still no urgency, no scrambling to hide what I had just seen. That's when it started to unravel. You see, when something is truly wrong, your mind doesn't jump forward, it goes backward. Suddenly, I remembered things I had ignored. Ronan offering to help Marceline with last-minute wedding details, late at night. The way conversations would abruptly stop when I entered a room. Lucian brushing off my questions with that same calm tone he was using now. At the time, it all felt harmless. Now, it felt rehearsed. I turned back toward the bed. Marceline had pulled the sheet up to her chest, but not like someone caught in shame. Her posture was straight, controlled. Her eyes met mine without flinching. That was the moment something cold settled in my stomach. This wasn't chaos. This was managed. Ronan sat up slowly, running a hand through his hair like he'd just been interrupted mid-conversation, not mid-betrayal. "Isolde," he said, almost casually, "this isn't what it looks like." I let out a quiet, disbelieving breath. "Then tell me what it looks like." Silence. Not the kind filled with panic, the kind filled with calculation. Then Lucian stepped forward. "You're misunderstanding," he said. Misunderstanding? I stared at him. "Your fiancé is in bed with my husband the night before your wedding, and I'm misunderstanding?" His jaw tightened, but he didn't raise his voice, didn't break. That's when fear crept in. Real fear. Not of betrayal, but of something I didn't yet understand. Marceline finally spoke, her voice calm, almost gentle. "We didn't want it to happen like this." I snapped. "Then how was it supposed to happen?" Lucian didn't hesitate this time. He looked me directly in the eyes and said, "After the wedding." And just like that, everything got worse. After the wedding? Let that sit for a second, because that's exactly what I did. I just stood there, repeating those words in my head like they might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. They didn't. I looked from Lucian to Ronan, then to Marceline, still sitting there far too composed for someone caught in something like this. "After the wedding, what?" I asked, my voice lower now, sharper. Ronan exhaled slowly, like a man inconvenienced rather than exposed. "Isolde, you deserve an explanation. Just not like this." "Not like this?" I almost laughed. "You think there's a better version of this?" Before he could answer, Lucian stepped in again, too quickly. "I knew," he said. Everything stopped. Even the air felt different. "You... what?" I asked. "I knew," he repeated, steady, unwavering. "About them." There it was. No hesitation, no shame. Just truth, cold and clean. If the first shock cracked something inside me, this one split it open. "You knew your fiancé was sleeping with my husband," I said slowly. "And you still planned to marry her tomorrow?" "Yes." No pause, no apology, just yes. Why? That question burned through everything else. Why would any of them agree to this? "This isn't what you think," Lucian added quickly, as if he could still control the direction of this conversation. "It's not betrayal, it's an arrangement." An arrangement. Tell me, what kind of arrangement looks like this? I turned to Marceline. "You want to explain that?" And this time she didn't hesitate. She adjusted the sheet slightly, her gaze steady, voice calm in a way that made it worse. "My relationship with Ronan didn't start recently." My stomach dropped. "How long?" I asked. Years. The word landed heavily. Years. Not a mistake, not a moment of weakness. A pattern, a secret life. I looked at Ronan, searching his face for denial, something, but there was none. Just quiet acceptance. Then Marceline added something that shifted everything again. Lucian was never the one I was choosing between. I blinked. What does that mean? Lucian answered this time. It means this marriage was never about that. And suddenly, the pieces didn't just feel broken, they felt rearranged, deliberately. There are legal and financial reasons, he continued carefully. Things you don't know about. Things that require this marriage to happen. Require? My head was spinning now, trying to keep up, trying to make sense of something that refused to fit into anything familiar. So, let me understand, I said slowly. You're all standing here, telling me this is planned. That this, I gestured toward the bed, is part of something bigger. No one denied it. Not one of them. That's when I realized something even worse than betrayal was unfolding. This wasn't emotional. This was strategic. I swallowed hard and asked the only question that mattered now. What exactly have you built here? Ronan met my eyes, and for the first time, there was something heavier in his expression. Not guilt, not shame, something colder. And then he said, everything you think this family is built on isn't real. Nothing is real? Have you ever heard something so absurd that your mind refuses to accept it at first? Because that's where I was, standing in that doorway, staring at the three of them, waiting for someone to break, to admit this was madness. No one did. Ronan was the one who stepped forward, his voice measured, almost clinical now. The estate, the accounts, everything tied to this family. It's not as straightforward as you believe. I felt my grip tighten on the doorframe. Then make it straightforward. And he did. Piece by piece, like he had been waiting for this moment. There's a legal structure in place, he explained. One that was set up long before you and I married. It governs how the assets are transferred, and when. Transferred. To Lucian, I said. Ronan nodded. Eventually, but only under certain conditions. Something in my chest sank. What conditions? Lucian answered this time, his voice quieter. I have to be married. Of course. Of course it couldn't be simple. And not just married, Ronan added. Married in a way that satisfies the clause. Publicly, formally, without dispute. My eyes flicked to Marceline, still calm, still watching. So she was chosen, I said slowly. Marceline tilted her head slightly. Introduced, she corrected. Introduced. Like this was all just logistics. The room felt smaller now, suffocating under the weight of what they were revealing. And after? I asked. After the wedding? Lucian hesitated for the first time. Just a second, but I saw it. We would separate, he admitted. Quietly. Eventually. Eventually. So the marriage is fake, I said.
It's functional,
Ronan replied. That word, functional, settled into me like something final. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. Not the boy I raised, not the man I thought I knew, but someone who had agreed to this. participated in it, helped construct it. "You agreed to this?" I asked. His jaw tightened. "It was necessary." Necessary. For money? For control? For something that clearly mattered more than truth? I felt something shift inside me then. Not break, not shatter, just sharpen. Because there was still one piece missing. One thing that didn't fit. If all of this was planned so carefully, so deliberately, why hide it from me? I looked at each of them in turn before asking the question that had been building since the moment I opened that door. "Why?" I said quietly. "Was I not supposed to see this?" This time, it wasn't Ronan who answered. It was Marceline. Her voice softer now, but precise. "Because," she said, holding my gaze, "you're the only one who could stop it." And in that moment, I finally understood my place in all of this. Not as a bystander, not as a victim, but as the one variable they couldn't control. The only one who could stop it. That's what she said. And for the first time that night, everything made sense. Not emotionally, not all at once, but logically, clean, sharp, undeniable. "You built this around me," I said slowly, looking at Ronan. "Not with me. Around me." Because now I could see it. The reason for the secrecy, the reason for the timing, the reason they needed the wedding to happen before I asked too many questions. I wasn't just part of this family. I was the gatekeeper. "The trust," I continued, my voice steadier than any of them expected. "It's still in my name." No one answered. They didn't need to. That silence confirmed everything. The marriage clause, the urgency, the performance. It was never just about Lucian gaining access. It was about doing it without triggering scrutiny, without me looking too closely. And tonight, they miscalculated. I let out a quiet breath, then turned away from the doorway. "I'm cancelling the wedding," I said. Lucian stepped forward immediately. "Mum, wait." "No," I cut in, calm but absolute. "You should have thought about that before you turned your life into a transaction." He stopped. Not because he agreed, but because he knew I meant it. By morning, everything had changed. The calls were made before sunrise, vendors cancelled, guests informed. Confusion spread quickly, but I didn't explain. Not to them. I contacted my attorney next. That part moved faster than any of them expected. The trust remained locked under my authority, every clause reviewed, every vulnerability closed. Ronan lost his access within days. No arguments, no negotiation, just signatures. The fallout was precise. Lucian lost what he had been working toward. Not out of spite, but because the conditions were no longer met. Marceline disappeared entirely. No messages, no attempt to repair anything. As if her role had simply ended. And Ronan? He stayed in the house for a week. Then I asked him to leave. He didn't fight me. That was the only honest thing he did in the end. Weeks later, the house was quiet again. No wedding decorations, no tension humming beneath the surface. Just stillness. Lucian came by once. He tried to explain, not the plan, but his reasoning. Stability, pressure, timing. I listened, but I didn't undo anything. Some decisions don't get reversed just because they're understood. Now I move through the house differently, clearer. That guest room door stays closed. Not out of fear, but because I no longer need to open it. I saw enough. More than enough. And if there's one thing I know now, it's this. I didn't freeze because I was weak. I froze because, for the first time in years, I was finally seeing everything exactly as it was.